Testing, testing, testing. 1, 2, 3. Yuck. Okay, so we got to talk about the coffee table. So the last time I spent an entire video discussing a movie, it happened to be my very first video essay on the YouTube. And I haven't really done it since because I don't really want to. I mean, never let it be said that I'm a one trick pony. But this time I saw a movie that inspired me so much that I have to tell somebody about it. And since TikTok only lets you do 10-minute long videos, here we are. Okay, so the movie that we're going to talk about is 2022's Spanish film, The Coffee Table. Now, if you are as chronically online as I am, then you more than likely have heard of this movie. And the one thing that you've probably heard is that this is the most fucked up movie you have ever seen. Now, I am well aware that when a bunch of people say that a horror movie is the most fucked up movie they've ever seen, um, the appropriate etiquette is to take that with a grain of salt. And that is mainly because when you hear this particular criticism about a horror movie, it usually means one of two things. It's usually the movie is actually the most messed up thing you've ever seen in your life, or it is the single most lamest thing you've ever seen in your life. And there's no in between. It's usually one or the other. And as a person who has been personally victimized by both of those scenarios, I have learned to approach such movies with a bit of caution. So, with that in mind, I put off watching The Coffee Table for a while. Well, I put off watching it until it became available on one of my streaming services. I figured that way, if it turns out to be lame, then I won't feel ripped off because I spent $25 on snacks just to have 2 hours of my life taken from me that I will never get back. And on the flip side of that, if it's too intense, I could always turn it off. Not that I've ever actually done that, actually. I've got a head thing about watching half a movie. I usually, even if it's the most horrible thing I've ever seen, I usually hang in there. I really should talk to somebody about that. Okay, so let's take this from the top, shall we? Oh, and spoiler alert, I am about to discuss this entire movie from the very beginning to the very end. So, if you have not seen this movie and it's on your list and you're gonna plan to see it soon, stop this video right here, go watch the movie, and then come back. I promise you, I am not going anywhere. So, okay, The Coffee Table. Written and directed by Written and directed by Calle Casas, starring Cristina Borabia and David Pareja. Hi, future me, doing a little editing on this video that you're watching. And the actress that plays Maria is actually not Cristina Borabia. It's Estefania de los Santos. Estefania de los Santos. Cristina Borabia was actually the production design person and the art director. I have no idea how her name got mixed up in that, but yeah. Anyway, back to the video. Now, for those of you who are interested, the trigger warnings for this movie are infanticide, suicide, and implied pedophilia. I know, that sounds really scary. Don't worry, I'm here to hold your hand. So, our story begins in a furniture store with Jesus and Maria and their newborn son. They are arguing with a very pushy, kind of creepy salesperson about an extremely ugly coffee table. I mean, no, this thing is ugly. I know it's ugly because the minute I saw it, I kind of wanted to buy it myself because I love things that are so ugly and gaudy that people have to stop and say, "My God, what is that thing?" So anyway, Maria hates the table and all of its gaudy ugliness, as it were. And Jesus is like me and loves the table. Unlike me, however, he is in denial about how ugly and gaudy it is and thinks it's the most beautiful thing he's ever seen. So, okay, in this first scene, we learn some very important information. Number one, Maria is up there in age. We don't really know how far up there. I don't think they ever really say, but we are aware that she's old enough to have had a difficult pregnancy and a difficult birth. Two, Maria's pretty bossy, and Jesus feels some type of way about it. Like, there's even this whole argument between them about how she got to choose the baby's name and she got to do all of these things for the baby, and he hasn't gotten to do anything. And all he wants is this one thing, this one ugly ass coffee table. So, yeah, there's a little bit of a power play going on between them. And finally, number three, the glass part of this table is unbreakable. The salesman says it several times, reiterates it, that this is an unbreakable table. Like, he says it a lot. It's, like I said, he's kind of creepy. Okay, so despite Maria's numerous protests, Jesus gets the freaking table and brings it home. We even see him pushing this gigantic thing in its box up several flights of steps leading to their apartment. Now, on the way into his apartment, we meet their neighbors, a mother and daughter. The mother's name I don't remember, and she's kind of not really very important, but the daughter is Ruth. They are on their way to walk their dog, and they're having a polite conversation with Maria and also Jesus. So, okay, Jesus gets the table in the house, and before he can leave, he's stopped by the daughter Ruth, who's around 13 years old. Ruth wants to talk to him about that one time that they kissed in the elevator. Okay, so before you trip, to Jesus's credit, he straight up denies that any of that happened. In fact, he says to her, "We did not kiss. You tried to kiss me, and I told you to back off." Ruth, being a psychotic 13-year-old, gets very upset at being rejected and tells him that he needs to talk to his wife about their illicit affair so they can run off together, or else she will. Yep. So, okay, anyway, moving on. Jesus is back in the house and he's putting together the coffee table and also discussing things, the table, with his wife. Now, Maria is spending the greater majority of this conversation tending to their newborn son, who is kind of dozing on the couch. Within this conversation, she starts really laying into him about that damn coffee table and him buying it, that it was a stupid thing. And the conversation kind of turns into, you know how you have a fight with somebody about something that is completely inconsequential, and as it turns out, you're not really fighting about that stupid little thing. You're fighting about something bigger. That's kind of what this is. See, the thing is, they're not really fighting about the table at all. As we kind of find out as the argument progresses, Maria is really just obsessed because she feels like Jesus has purchased this thing out of some childish act, you know. She feels like he's not ready for fatherhood, that she even calls him out on it, says, "You were not ready for this child, you never wanted this child, and I did, and you're drawing this line in the sand because you are a little boy," which admittedly is pretty freaking hurtful to Jesus. And also hurtful to Maria, because at the end of the day, she wanted this child and she wanted to have it with him. So, like, this argument kind of reaches a pitch, and Maria decides that she needs some air. As it happens, they've invited his brother and his brother's new girlfriend over for lunch. So she decides to head over to the store to get some things for preparation for that. As she leaves, she slams the door on the way out, which wakes up the baby. And now Jesus has to stop everything he's doing to soothe his son. Okay, so let's stop here. Take a nice cleansing breath. Have a drink of water if you have it. Okay, so it's at this point that things get real. The very, very cool thing about this point in the movie is that we know something is about to happen here. Like, too much time has passed in this movie so far where really normal things are going on. I mean, like, we all saw the sign we came in. Like we all know that this is a horror movie, right? But up until this point, everything that we've seen is in the category of drama. Maybe comedy, maybe it's a dramedy. All we've been doing is watching a bickering couple complain about an ugly coffee table. And here we are at this point where Jesus is soothing his newborn son. For a very long time, all we can see is the shot from the hallway leading into the living room where he is. And we see him walking back and walking forth. And he's talking to his son and he's singing to his son. His son's cries are becoming bigger and bigger, and the baby is getting more and more inconsolable. And you, the viewer, are also becoming more and more agitated with that baby. And let me tell you something, unless you have been alone in a room with a screaming newborn, you don't know what tension is. Like, you can't even imagine the screws that are being tightened in an otherwise rational brain when there's a screaming newborn that won't be consoled in your arms. So there's all this tension that's building and building and building, and we're watching Jesus just walking back and forth with the baby and walking back and forth with the baby. And then we hear a crash and the baby stops crying. Yeah, whatever you were imagining has happened after hearing that is what has happened. The next series of images that we see after that are heart-wrenching. Jesus is kneeling over the broken glass of the coffee table, and his hands and the bundle that he was holding are drenched in blood. The bundle he has is in the midst of this broken glass. He is completely gone. Hands shaking, tears running down his face. He has completely snapped. And you're right there with him. You're right there with him, man. So the next thing that happens is that he realizes something probably around the same time as the rest of us do. You could actually see it happening. You could see the words pop up almost like a bubble over his head. What now? His wife is at the store at the moment. No one in the whole world even knows what has just happened. This is a thing that I have seen described in books and movies for years. It's the concept of the moment before. The moment before is the space in which we live right before our lives change forever. It's the eye of the storm. Or actually, you know what? It's more like when Wile E. Coyote runs off the cliff, and that second before he looks down and realizes he's gonna fall. That's that moment. And the tragic thing is that you can see it written all over his face. Like, all he wants in that moment is just to take it all back. Because he realizes that when the next moment comes, and it will, there's no taking anything back. He's going to have to face the consequences of his actions. And the events that happen next are all him trying to preserve that moment before. He makes the decision to clean up the mess before his wife gets home, and to also hide the baby's body. Now, he's got some hurdles in this course of action. Number one, cleaning the blood out of the rug. Like, forget about all the glass. The glass. Getting rid of the glass is actually the easy part. Getting blood out of a rug? I'm saying, if you've ever had to clean a large amount of blood out of any kind of fabric, then you know it's virtually impossible to do if you've never had to do it before. To give you an example, I once watched a documentary on Lizzie Borden. And in said documentary, they went into the house where the murders took place. And during their investigation, they were still able to find blood in the floorboards where the murder took place. And this is like some some odd years later. So, Jesus, who obviously has never had to clean blood out of a carpet before, goes for the household cleaner first. Well, they're out of household cleaner. So then he decides to go down to the neighbor's apartment where Ruth lives. He, of course, is harassed by Ruth, who says, I'm going to walk my dog later, and when I come back, if you haven't told your wife, I'm going to tell her myself. He's not trying to hear none of that, by the way. He's like covered in blood, asking for cleaning supplies, which, by the way, he explains away as being covered in paint. He's painting the baby's room red. Anyway, on his way back, he runs into another hurdle when the salesman that sold him the table shows up to give him a screw. Literally and figuratively, as it turns out. Earlier in this, Jesus realized that his coffee table is missing a screw. He called the company to get another screw. A salesman shows up to give him a screw and also ask him out for a date. Yeah, so anyway, Jesus obviously rebuffs those advances and gets back into the apartment, and he starts cleaning up everything as best as he can. Then he takes his son's remains and he puts them into his crib and closes the door. There's just one thing left, or one problem that he realizes at this point. The baby no longer has a head. He discovers that the baby's head has rolled under the armchair. For the record, no, he does not get it out. And I am not mad at him for that. That's a little, even for this situation, that's a little much. All right, so phase one is complete. Phase two is to clean himself up, which he does. He takes a shower, cries in said shower, changes his clothes, and then he waits for his wife to get home. Now, the next sequence of events highlights something that I rarely even see anymore in movies, like horror or otherwise. This is something that I feel like these days is so rare because it's hard to do effectively. For the rest of this movie, we are treated to a little old school suspense by way of the telltale heart. Now, we have to take a little detour here because I realize that it's entirely possible that some of you out here that are watching this right now don't know what the telltale heart is. And as much as I don't really want to take a side road here at this point in reviewing this movie, I feel like I have to, because if you don't know what the telltale heart is, you will not understand this part of the movie. So stick with me. We're going to do a very, very short history lesson. All right, The Telltale Heart is a short story written in 1843 by Edgar Allan Poe. It is definitely one of his most famous works and probably my second favorite of all of the short stories and poems that he has written, second only to The Cask of Amontillado. Okay, so The Telltale Heart tells the story of a man who murders an old man that he happens to be living with. The story is told from the narrator's perspective, and we never know his name. We only know him as the narrator. Well, we don't know him at all, actually. We don't know his name. I mean, it doesn't matter. Anyway, the thing that does matter is that for some reason, that's not made entirely clear beyond the fact that the old man always appears to be watching him with his one good eye. The narrator decides to murder the old man in cold blood and then dismembers the body. It gets better because in The Telltale Heart, the narrator discusses the fact that he actually bore no ill will towards the man. The man hadn't really done anything to offend him other than give him the evil eye. Like, seriously, as far as the narrator knows, he's never been done wrong by the old man. And the narrator actually at one point professes to love him. Yet, in a fit of paranoid rage, he kills him just the same. Okay, so after he dismembers the body, he hides all of the parts all around the house. And the old man's heart, he happens to hide under the floorboards. Now, when you murder a person, even back in 1843, eventually authorities have been known to investigate such things. And that is what happens to the narrator. When the police come to speak to the man about his roommate missing, the narrator entertains them and tries to act as normal as possible. But all the while, he keeps hearing the beating of the old man's heart. The hallucination gets louder and more annoying and more nerve wracking, so much so that the narrator begins to believe that the policeman can hear it as well. Next of the story, the narrator finally goes mad and then confesses his crime to the police. Now, the interesting thing about this story is that within the span of 5 pages, Poe manages to build enough suspense around this one character and this one situation that you might actually start to question your own sanity. Like, the presumption is that it's his guilt that's driving the hallucination, but you might also find yourself asking if this is some kind of supernatural thing going on. Honestly, that's what I thought when I first read it as a kid. I thought that the ghost of the man had actually come back to haunt him. But that's done on purpose. And that is because of a literary device called the unreliable narrator. We are introduced to a character that we know almost from the jump that we can't entirely trust. Because how could you ever trust a murderer or a liar or a thief or a husband who seemingly is not into being a father? And once the murder happens, we are treated to this slow build of suspense that builds to a peak to which we think maybe the narrator has lost his mind. It's that encompasses this next portion of the coffee table. Jesus is now planning to keep his crime away from his wife. So, okay, the wife comes home and the first thing that she notices is all the blood on the carpet by the coffee table, or what's left of the coffee table. She asks what happens, and Jesus says that, well, the glass broke and the blood is from his hand. He had cut his hand pretty badly. What's her response? Yeah, she laughs a lot. Like, a lot. And it's a grating, like, raspy old lady laugh at that. It's it's a mocking, terrible, terrible laugh. And what makes it so bad is that she continues to laugh into the next scene when they're both preparing lunch. And on top of that, she makes fun of him like relentlessly, like talks all kind of shit about him. You bought this ugly ass table into this house. You fought so hard to have this hideous thing in our living room, and the first hour that you get it, you break it. You stupid, stupid, stupid man. Jesus is sweating the whole time. Like, it's affecting him, his wife laughing at him like this, but he's more concerned with her discovering the body of the baby, which she does try to check on the baby at a couple of points in time, and he insists, no, just got the baby to sleep. Just, let him sleep. All right, so eventually his brother and his brother's new girlfriend come over for lunch, and they're all having lunch. They're eating and they're talking, and it's all very normal. Jesus is drinking a lot. He's drunk through half of the bottle of wine before they really get into the lunch. Like, it's pretty clear that he is not okay. And I gotta tell you folks, this lunch scene is probably one of my favorite scenes in a horror movie, because like, Maria and her brother-in-law and his girlfriend are all sitting around having the most normal conversation you've ever heard in your life. Like, normal to the point to where it's kind of boring. But I promise you, Jesus ain't paying attention to anything that they're saying, and neither are you as an audience. We're all sitting there wondering and waiting when everything is gonna blow up. Like, if I gave you a pop quiz on what was discussed during that lunch scene, you couldn't pass it. You couldn't pass it if you wanted to. So finally, Jesus, sitting there sweating and drinking and having auditory hallucinations, by the way, decides that he can't take it anymore. So he goes into the bathroom and he decides that he's going to kill himself. I mean, honestly, what else can he do? Like, at best, he's going to jail for the rest of his life. He just murdered his own child in cold blood. So he goes into the bathroom and he takes his phone and he starts leaving a video message for Maria, apologizing for, well, murdering their kid. While he's doing this, his brother happens to overhear And he comes into the bathroom and he asks him what the fuck is going on. So being that the jig is up, Jesus decides to take his brother into the bedroom and show him what the fuck is going on. Now, Jesus's brother's take on this entire situation, well, he behaves like a brother, actually. Yeah, he's freaked out. Anyone would be freaked out. But the thing that he tells him that I'm kind of proud of the brother for is that whatever happens next, the first thing we have to do is tell your wife. You cannot hide this. We have got to talk to your wife. Jesus agrees with him on that, but he says to him, okay, but we tell her she cannot see this. She cannot see this body. She cannot see what's happened. And that's real talk because like I said earlier, Maria went through a lot to have this baby. So, like, all this sounds good. You think to yourself, yeah, okay, so it's probably going to be a lot of screaming and crying, but at least we'll be coming to the end of this, right? Yeah, except we forgot about one thing. Ruth. Remember? Ruth said that she was coming by the apartment after she walked her dog. And damned if she doesn't do it. Ruth comes to the apartment and she has a conversation with Maria. Basically tells her version of whatever happened in the elevator. When Jesus and his brother come out of the bedroom, they see Maria and Ruth standing there like, there's something you want to tell me? It's full on, yo, is this why you were acting all squirrely earlier? Did you really make out with a 13-year-old in the elevator? What the hell's wrong with you? And that sparks an argument, a big argument between her and between Jesus. And by the way, Ruth has arrived with her dog. Fun fact about dogs in movies, folks. If there is any kind of body part lying anywhere near them, they will sniff it out. Guess what Ruth's dog finds under the armchair? Yeah. So, that happens. The baby's head has been found. And literally everyone comes undone. Like everybody's screaming, crying, and throwing up. And yes, they are literally screaming, crying, and throwing up. And poor Maria is so distraught by this discovery that she goes out to the balcony and she takes a swan dive over the edge. In the final scene of the movie, we see the aftermath. The police have arrived. Apparently both Maria and Jesus and the baby all took a jump off of the balcony. When the chief of police asks one of the other police officers what happened, that officer says that they're not quite sure. They think maybe it was a murder-suicide. They don't know. All the witnesses are completely inconsolable. The only witness that they have at that point is the brother, who's sitting in the back of the police car, and he is completely gone. The cop says that the only thing that he will say to anyone is just 3 words. The coffee table. So yeah, I would call that a pretty sufficiently fucked up movie. A++. I liked it. Now, would I recommend this one? Abso-freaking-lutely. Will I watch it again? Maybe, but not for a very long time. I mean, this one took a lot out of me emotionally. I kind of needed a smoke and a drink afterwards. But yeah, that's the coffee table in a nutshell. If you made it this far without watching it, I mean, watch it at your own risk, I guess. And that is this week's video essay. Thank you so much for listening to me rant for another week in a row. I post every 2 weeks, so make sure you hit that subscribe button so that you don't miss my next post. With that being said, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.